Hello everyone, I'm here today to talk to you about psychodynamic therapy and how it applies to shadow facing and the ascension process. So, psychodynamic therapy is a in-depth psychology that reveals psychic tension and inner conflict that is within the mind that was created in a situation of extreme stress, emotional hardship, or physical trauma. So as you can see just by that beginning definition, how it applies to shadow facing and the ascension process. Because really, shadow facing is dealing with whatever past traumas, emotional problems, or stresses that we've experienced throughout our lives. So as you can see right there, psychodynamic therapy is a very good process to deal with shadow facing. So this is definitely one that I've used as part of the process to face all the shadows that I've had in my own life. So it's very good process. It's one that I use specifically. You can kind of look at it as, in a spiritual sense, alchemy. In some ways, it's just a structured psychological process. So there are 3 steps to this method. One of them is free association. So this is through the examination of your true feelings and thoughts about the situation, you can access your unconscious mind, the information, memories, or impulses that otherwise you may have not been able to bring to the surface before. After being brought to the conscious mind, they can be interpreted, analyzed, and resolved. Okay, so for this, the free association aspect of bringing things from the subconscious into the conscious mind, examining the information, memories, or impulses. So you pretty much have to be able to see what these different things are. So for me, I use 2 different meditational methods myself. I've learned this process already, the psychodynamic therapy process. So I learned it. Then I apply the no mind meditation. I basically clear my mind completely, go in, access whatever memory, whatever type of information or impulses that I am currently examining. That way I'm able to individualize that specific thing, whatever it might be, in the no mind meditation. And then I use visualization to track that specific memory or impulse or whatever aspect that I am actually dealing with at that point in order to analyze it. So I'm basically using this method to track the path of where that memory comes from, what aspects of that memory are affecting me, why, the thoughts I'm having about it, why I feel the way I feel about it, all these things. So I use these 2 methods, the no mind meditation and visualization, after I fully understood the method of psychodynamic therapy. So I use these 2 meditations to get into that problem and to fully examine it, interpret it, and analyze it. So the next aspect is dream analysis. Okay, so through the dream analysis, we want to keep records. So using a journal is a really good way to do this. And we combine it with the free association method. So through this, you analyze the hidden meanings, underlining motivations, and other portrayals in order to resolve the issues. So through your dreams, your subconscious mind is putting this up into the conscious mind in order for you to try and deal with it. So through your analyzing process, you have to actually analyze the dream first to see if it actually is even part of you dealing with the trauma or if it's just a dream. So you have to use this process. So that's the first thing you do. So then at that point, you basically can use still the no mind and visualization technique to apply to this. That way you can examine that specific dream and see, hey, is this actually coming from something I'm currently dealing with right now in my life, a trauma or a drama or anything along those lines that you might be dealing with, and be able to um, basically differentiate between if it's an actual trauma or if it's just your mind just dreaming. So that is important. So the next aspect is resistance recognition. So this is seeing that you are withstanding, denying, or withholding the truth in a defensive way, which prevents interpretation and resolution. So basically at this point, it's just trying to figure out if you are resisting that entire process that you're going through, that whatever things are coming up into your mind, whatever memories or information that's coming up when you're going through the first free association method, if you're actually in denial of this, if you're resisting it and you're saying, no, that isn't really what happened to me, that isn't really something that I need to deal with, whatever. These are aspects that you have to address and not resist, because if you resist it, then it's actually causing you more problems, because that's not going to help. So there are 3 types of resistance. So the first type of resistance is when you deliberately avoid the information revealed because you distrust the system, the interpreter, or are ashamed or reject the interpretation. So as I was just saying, you're actually avoiding that information that's coming to you, and you basically really don't want to deal with it. So if it's a memory, for instance, and that memory pops itself up into your conscious mind, and some would call this a PTSD type of thing, where you're basically reliving that entire situation. You basically, a lot of times, will just take that and try and just get rid of it, just throw it back into the back of your mind and avoid actually dealing with that, because you're not wanting to accept that really did happen, and you don't really want to face it. So at that point, you have to actually go into, like I said, use this no mind method. Go in it, pull that forward, get past the pain, get past whatever issues that you got going on there, and you feel it, you address it, you analyze it, you get past all of that, because eventually you're going to get to the point where you feel much better, because you've basically resolved this problem that, if you don't resolve it, will continue reoccurring. It will continue popping back out, because your subconscious mind does not want that there. It will continue pushing it forward in different ways. So then the next piece is repression resistance. This is called the ego resistance. You do this when you don't want to see your unacceptable thoughts, feelings, actions, or impulses, and are forcibly keeping them repressed. So, like I said, when it comes forward, you basically are taking whatever that is that has come forward, and you are pushing it back. You are just avoiding it completely. Now, you can actually do this in multiple ways: alcoholism, using drugs, eating disorders, all kinds of things. So, you really got to look at this in a positive way, that what you're doing here by facing these shadows, by overcoming these things, you're actually becoming a better you. You're actually overcoming all these shadows, and you're becoming the better you, the best you can be, by getting rid of all of this baggage. It's really what this is. You're sifting through the baggage. You're basically throwing that on the fire, and you're burning it. But you got to sift through it. So. And then there's id resistance. It's the third one. So this is to resist change and solving the problem. And instead, you continue repeating the trauma in different situations over and over again. This is called repetition compulsion. This can be seen when there is transference of the views that you have created by the that have been created by the trauma and is pointed at others in your life, such as your parents, siblings, spouse, children, and people at work, etc. By seeing and addressing these projected views, the goal is to re-experience the original trauma and analyze the effects, then resolve the trauma by working through the relational problems and the internal conflicts. So basically what you're seeing here, kind of what I was referring to earlier, is whatever those problems are, you're repressing them. So as you repress it and you push it back, it actually starts, I guess you'd say, modifying itself out into your real life, where you're basically having whatever past traumas occurred, they're actually affecting you. They're affecting people around you because you are acting out those situations in a way that is actually affecting your entire life. So it's really something that you want to look at here in the aspects of shadow facing, because that's what we're doing with shadow facing. We're basically going into ourselves and getting past all of those problems. Every one of those problems that we've had in our past, we're getting past it and we're dealing with it. Okay, so this is something that I have combined. Okay, I've made a modified version. I call it a hybrid method, which is a combination of the no mind, the visualization, and another therapy, which is called cognitive behavioral therapy. And by combining all of these things, I have been able to completely get through all the traumas that I've had in my life, and I am able to actually apply it to any type of thing that happens now. So if something occurs now that causes a high stress problem for me, or a traumatic situation occurs, or some type of emotional trauma, such as someone dying, or in a high stress situation getting into a car accident, or other things that can occur in life, you can take these methods and apply it to that. That way you can actually get past whatever those problems are and come out the other side of that in a more positive and better well-being, and where it doesn't stick around and it doesn't continue being part of your life, and you actually are learning through this process how to get past things in a constructive, positive way. So that's how you're doing with this at this point, was you're basically applying a therapy method as a way to deal with your shadows. You're dealing with the emotional and the psychological aspects of yourself, which is part of the ascension process. This is part of self mastery. So you're basically going inside yourself and you're becoming a master. That is part of what this process is. Okay, so you're looking at that from this entire perspective. So you might want to actually consider, if you have some deep-seated issues, going and seeing a therapist for this. That is a good idea if you feel that it is necessary. I am not a therapist. I am not a psychologist. All of these things I've learned on my own. I have been to psychologists and so forth, so on, therapists myself. And I've learned methods like this from them. But as I've said, I've completely put together my own method that works best for me, because the cognitive behavioral therapy combined with this, because when you look at it, this is about finding the problem, analyzing the problem, and just going, okay, here's the problem. Now I resolved it. The problem no longer exists, but what do I do now? Okay, how do I continue with my life with all those behaviors that were being caused because I had that pre-existing problem? I have to now change those. We're changing our behavior through the cognitive behavioral therapy. We're changing all those behaviors that were being caused from the problem, that deep-seated shadow or trauma that were causing problems throughout our life. So when we apply the cognitive therapy, they're basically, this is changing all of those behaviors that we had and making it to where we're no longer using those in our lives. We're applying a new, more stable, positive way, whatever that is. So that is what that is. So here, that's what this is about, guys. This is a method of mental health and well-being. It is an essential process to shadow facing and integration. It's also going to be something that later on, when we get a little bit farther, I'll get into. It will be used also in addressing limiting beliefs. So this is very important also. So I'll be going through the cognitive behavioral therapy next time here, because I want to get you guys understanding the foundational pieces that are here. So the psychodynamic and cognitive behavioral therapies are both two pieces are foundational for the ascension process, because the shadow facing is a continuous piece of the ascension process. So having these methods in place are really, really good. So on a spiritual way of looking at this, because this is about ascension, it's also like alchemical. So when you look at spiritual alchemy, it is also part of this type of method. So if you want to look into spiritual alchemy, that's another way. I'll probably get into that a little bit later on also. But at this point, I want to get these two methods. I'll bring up the next one next time and get these methods into place. That way, whenever we start going through more and doing more, then you'll actually have these already in place, and you will not have to deal with those problems for a long period. They will come up, you'll have to deal with whatever shadow you're facing, and then this process is there, so you'll just have it already in place and you'll be able to do it. So definitely do more research into this. There's a few different people I found on YouTube that have videos about this process, how to use it, so forth, so on. And if you want to go and get a therapist who does this specific type of thing, then go for it. It's a good idea if you feel that you need to. But one thing to be certain about and think about is that some therapists will not be able to understand or relate to the aspects of what the ascension process is and who we actually are, if they can actually come to an understanding in terms of what intuition is, what ESP is, psychic abilities, these kind of things. We do have to view that and see that for what that is. So try and find a good therapist who will actually help you understand these emotional problems, but that will not judge you for having the ESP abilities, as we'll just put that at this point. There are some out there that have good methods. Psychodynamic therapy is a foundational piece to shadow facing. It is something that is needed in order for you to properly face the shadows that you're going to have to face. That way, you can achieve self-mastery. So, all right, guys, you have a good one. Stay strong, and I'll see you later.